Welcome everyone from the 6GIA side, the private side. It's great to be having this call. It obviously marks the beginning of these important strands within the Smart Network and Services as part of this large 35 project starting point of the Smart Network and Services JU. And this is clearly in some ways the starting of a story that we are looking at a series of specific research projects which have just started and starting their journey towards 6G, but also for people like myself and many on this call from the public and the private side, it marks the end of a journey to actually get this far, to get the program up and running, to get real research started. So this is wonderful. Welcome. This is a serious milestone and I'm very happy to be here. Let me then just spend 5 minutes just talking a little bit about the background of where this is coming from and what we're trying to achieve. And then I will hand over to my European Commission colleague who will look in more detail about the actual cause and future plans. So for me, the story starts with what we're trying to achieve with 6G. So we have created a vision paper from the 6GIA, which had a lot of input from the ICT 52 set of projects, which came from 5GPP, which tried to build this bridge between 5G and 6G. And although we don't know what 6G will be in detail today, indeed, that's your job, to be honest, we do know that there's a number of areas, a number of drivers which we need to take into account. So we have things in terms of society, where we wish to clearly tackle some of the key problems or issues we have society. I think everyone's aware of energy concerns and resources and Green Deal and all this sort of stuff we're trying to achieve. And this requires a certain set of technologies, and also for societal acceptance, we need to have things like inclusivity and security and sustainability. Equally, coming from the European Commission and the political side, there's a series of sort of policy issues that we need to address. So some of them are to do with sustainability and Green Deal, clearly, but there is also the issue of trying to have a more technological sovereignty for Europe, making sure we have access to these future technologies, making sure we try and influence these future technologies. And secondly, or lastly, thirdly, indeed, there's the business thing, not just about creating new products for the telecoms domain, but trying to use this technology to gain advantage in other vertical domains, be that automotive or smart cities or smart agriculture or all the rest. So those are the ideas we need to keep in mind as we try and look for 6G solutions. If we come on to the next slide, please. Here we try and point out exactly what we're trying to do with smart networks and services. So this is an exciting new partnership, which is more than just a single set of projects. It's hopefully going to build a complete ecosystem, which will then drive 6G innovation going forward. And there are clearly some enablers that are identified that we need to provide, things to do with advanced flexible architectures, the use of AI, the use of big data. There's clearly a lot of enablers that we need to be considering, and a lot of these are very relevant to the streams we're talking about today and the work that you'll be doing. And from that, we hope to clearly get that set of expected results that will really make a difference in many of the areas we were talking about before. So technological leadership, the competitiveness of European industry, and indeed the sustainability and interoperability. And maybe the last point to make from this slide is what we're trying to do is we're trying to influence the 6G standard clearly, but it's nothing, or the 6G standard is not something any single region or country can create alone. So we are very interested and very much including this international collaboration aspect, the need to work with other partners around the world to create one 6G standard. That is perhaps more at the 6GIA level or Smart Network and Services level, but I think it's an important thing to keep in mind. And indeed, we will try and create opportunities for the existing projects to work with international partners. And I'll come back in further sessions and other forums to discuss this in more detail. As a last slide, I would just like to focus on a number of things that we do need to keep in mind. So we've now successfully started this first set of smart network and services projects, and that's great. But at the moment, they're very much a set of 35 individual projects. And what we need to do, as I said, is try and create this community. And to do that, we need to make sure we can collaborate between the projects. And to do that, there is something called the collaboration agreement. So this is a legal document which all partners need to sign, and it provides the legal basis for collaboration and work between projects. So we have now in the process of the board members have signed or are signing this collaboration agreement, and very shortly we'll be rolling this out to the projects. And this is important because it provides the whole legal basis for all these collaborations, things like the steering board and the technical board, things like the working groups that we very much wish to create. And we will have a number of different classes of working groups. So in a similar way to 5GPP, we will have project working groups, which will only be for project members, if you will, within smart network and services, but we will also have 6GIA working groups looking more to the business point of view, and these so-called strategic working groups, which are a new idea to try and focus on a small number of areas which have specific strategic importance, where we can really invest and drive those areas going forward. We have a little bit of an issue at this beginning phase of the Smart Network and Services JU. And quite simply, until we get those collaboration agreements in place, there's a little bit of a legal loophole relative to working together. We're fairly limited what we can do together until we get that legal basis. So firstly, I would like to express the importance of please getting those collaboration agreements signed by all the partners so we can work together. But equally, we cannot wait for that to happen. We need some mechanism to get together and discuss. And the plan at the moment is that we will have some pre-steering board meeting. So it will not be controlled by the collaboration agreement, because clearly that will take some time to be signed. But it will involve the coordinators from all the projects in some general discussions and general information exchange. And that's something which, to begin with, either myself or someone I appoint will be chairing. And I would hope to have a first meeting of that in the next month or so, so that all the coordinators from all the projects can come together and at least get to know who's leading what. And we can also go into more details about these issues of what needs to be done now. Once we have a critical mass of collaboration agreements signed, once we have 70% of the projects have signed those collaboration agreements, then we will put the normal processes in place. And that means we will run elections for the steering board and the technical board. And then they will take that new leadership into account, will then drive that going forward. And then we can start forming these working groups and going forward. As I say, I know I've gone through that very quickly, and maybe that's not all clear. I will come back to you all and explain that in more detail as we go forward with these pre-SB meetings. But I just wanted to mention that to keep that in mind as we go forward, that we need to create structure beyond the individual projects. With that, then I'd like to hand over to my European Commission colleague and wish you a very successful workshop.